Hi guys, it's Nathan here from Headbangers. Today we've got the metal genre tier list. So we're going to be marking all the main genres of metal. Now a little bit of a warning. There's a bit of a dishevelled last minute tier list. I really hope we've sold you on the video. Don't click off, please. But yeah, no, it was a really fun one. Basically how we've set it out is each main band in the genre represents the genre. Just for it's easier for you visual listeners. For your audio listeners, it's not going to make any difference. But yeah, essentially, it's just all the main sort of genres we can think of, all in a nice little tier list, going from S all the way down to F. S being the best, F being the lowest. You've seen this before on YouTube anyway. So yeah, I imagine you all know about it unless you've been living under a rock. But yeah, it was a fun one. I feel like we've made some good arguments. You know, might have shut on a few genres, including Gent, but we live and learn. But I hope you enjoy the episode. And without any further ado, here it is. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Headbangers podcast, where your hosts Nathan and Brad. Here today we're doing a tier list. We're humping on that bandwagon. We weren't sure what to start with, but we thought, why not start with ranking the genres of metal?
Yeah, and
Um,
we need to explain. So for visual purposes, because we didn't want to just type out the genre and have it look boring, we have picked a band that is massive in that genre, and it's just going to be their logo. So like death metal, it's Cannibal Corpse. Black metal is who have you picked for black metal, Brad?
well, Mayhem, of course.
Mayhem. So like think about it that way. So like for traditional British metal, it's like Judas Priest or Iron Maiden. It's that the biggest band in the genre represents the genre as a whole. We're not ranking the bands. We are more ranking the genres that they belong to.
Exactly. So yeah, we thought it'd be a fun one to do. I'd say for the most part we agree on genres. Like, there's some that we both love, and I imagine we'll put a lot of the same ones in the S tier, but then it'll become to some and we'll sort of like have a bit of a disagreement on where other things should go. So I think it'd be fun to open up the conversation, and obviously please let us know where you'd rank your metal tier list. So um let's get into it.
Yeah. Share your screen, Brad. I want to
Yeah.
see what we're putting on.
Right. Can you see that?
Yep, I can see your screen.
Okay. So let's get started. Let's start with good old death metal. Because I'm sure, like, I'd say out of most genres, I'd say this is the one that we both actively listen to the most together. Nathan, what's your opinion on death metal?
Instant. I feel like everyone knows the answers. Instant S tier. Instant
Yeah,
S tier.
it has
The
to be
easiest S
instant.
tier there is.
Yeah, we've got to start off easy. I mean, once you've listened to death metal, I feel like everything else becomes a tiny bit redundant. It's like kind of like the final port of call in it, really. Like, if you want to get as brutal as it gets, you're looking no further than death metal. And there's many forms. There's death metal to relax to, there's death metal to headbang to, there's death metal with slow riffs, there's death metal with fast riffs.
Yeah, I feel like the thing is, if you're into metal and if you don't like death metal, what are you doing?
I mean, it's
I mean,
fine.
like, what?
It's fine to not like it, Nathan.
Yeah, no. It's not. It's not because it's the most metal thing there is. Like the book ends there. The book ends there. Someone might argue black metal is the most metal thing ever. Nah, right? Death metal is the most metal genre in metal. If that
I mean,
makes any
that's true.
sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the most brutal kind of metal, and I think that you know a lot of my favorite bands do come from that. I think in a way it has a lot of the most variety that you can get. I think a lot of like templates to incorporate. I don't know, piano pieces or violins, or even just straightforward like low produced but sounding raw kind of metal. So yeah, I think it's got the variety.
It's definitely S tier because, like, also I can't think of a genre that has produced more solid bands in metal.
I have to agree. You know what I mean?
It's like a good. It's the ratio is definitely like the ratio of great bands to bad bands. The ratio is higher in good bands. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
Like
I feel like since I've got into death metal, you know, I'm probably about like 6 years ago now, probably even longer actually. Since I've got into death metal, I haven't really stopped listening to it. You know, it's been that genre that I've actively always come back to. There's always good new bands coming out. Well, I can't say the same about some of the other genres. Like some of the other genres are, you know, there's a period in my life where I'd listen to that for like, you know, years or like, you know, a few months and I'd really be into it. Um, and then it just kind of go away, and maybe there'll be something that really spark that. But for death metal, you know, that train's never stopped rolling.
yeah, think Entombed, Morbid Angel. Like the list just
Talking
goes.
tribal gaze, we're talking frozen
Yeah,
soul.
Gate Creeper. Like do you know what I mean? Like the list of solid, and I mean solid bands, almost never made a bad record. Morbid Angel. There's
Exactly.
a few shitters. There's a few shitters in there, right?
Shit.
But the ones that are great, right, are amazing. Cannibal Corpse never made a bad album, right? And that goes for a lot of fucking death metal bands. Never made a bad album. Fucking Entombed never made a bad album, right?
I think it says a lot as well because like every you know, a lot of bands are still trying to find that old school death metal sound, and it's a genre that's influential time and time again. That you know everyone wants to be a part of it. So you know, there's no denying like it's the easiest S rank we've had to give so far.
Yeah, that's an instant. We knew when we made the list, and death metal was on there. We knew that was going
So moving on, let's go into glam metal.
instant F tier, instant instant F tier.
So I've got Steel Panther as a thing. Now I know you might say, "Oh, well, they're a piss tape band, you know, of glam metal, they're not a real one." But I just thought, you know, I'd say Steel Panther's quite a notable band, you know, and I don't know where else to put them on. It was the first band that came to my mind.
When
Um, I'm not
you
the
could have
biggest
argued Motley Crue, but I'd say they're more 80s pop.
80s rock, yeah, I'd say that, yeah, yeah, I'd say like because I think Steel Panther's still got the metal in there. You know, they've got some heavy riffs in there, which I think would push them more into metal than it would into glam rock.
Yeah, but as a whole, what do you think to glam metal?
With glam metal, I don't mind it. I think it can be fun. Like, you know, if it's the kind of thing if I heard it on the club or I heard it on the radio, I think they've got some good catchiness. I think, you know, they write songs that are meant to be radio friendly and meant to be a hit, which I think can be lost in some other genres. You know, like some people want to just play really fast or like play as technical as possible. And they forget about the songwriting aspects. I do feel like glam manages to keep that. And I know the whole gimmick thing with the hair and you know dressing like women or whatever, you know might be a gimmick. I think it's cool and it's theirs. I just don't think it's not a genre that I actively go back to. You know, I'll listen to a song here and there, but like I don't think I could listen to a full glam metal album except for maybe Steel Panther. But again, they're more like it's more like on the nose, you know, because they're taking the piss.
Yeah, so for me, it's an F tier
You can explain
because
why.
honestly, my honest opinion, one of the weakest that we've got on the list. I have never, and you can quote me on this, I have never enjoyed a glam metal song or album. Not even Steel Panther. I think even though Steel Panther cheated, I can appreciate Steel Panther because they've taken the piss. However,
And to be fair, like Satchel from Steel Panther is a great fucking guitarist. To be fair,
agreed.
yeah.
However, as a genre, terrible.
What is it that don't do it for you?
Objectively terrible. Everything, what the songs are written about, the composition of the songs, how that every single band sort of sounds the same no matter what band you're listening to. Like as a genre, for me, it's an F tier. But where would you put it on the list?
Good question. I think I'd put glam metal in E. Like it's not terrible because I would still probably enjoy the songs if they came on. I think Steel Panther is it. I kind of regret putting Steel Panther as my choice here because I feel like they are sort of better than the most of the bands in the genre because they are quite talented musicians, like great vocals, solid guitar playing, you know, drums are great. But as a whole, you know, I couldn't. I don't think I could even name you like 5 glam metal bands, maybe glam rock bands, but not glam metal. Um, so yeah, I'd probably rank it in an E because I don't think that I don't think it's a terrible genre. It's just not something that I like that much.
Okay.
So
I'm
let's
strong
oops,
F.
shut
However,
fucking.
you fucked the list. But brah.
Trying to click the thing. Here we go. Okay.
All right, you're right. You know it's easier. You know it's easier. Click on it. No. Click on it. A win and just click. You've got a Mac, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
Command T.
Fancy. Okay. Sick. Right,
It
here we
just
go.
selects that. Right. Okay. I will consolidate and accept that it's an E. However, I would prefer F. Right. But I will consolidate and go E.
Yeah, we compromised. There's a healthy relationship on this podcast where we
Yes.
can open communication.
Yeah. Open communication is important.
Yeah,
But
listen to
I'll
that.
consolidate and go with E.
Okay.
Right.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it. Right, okay, we've got industrial metal next.
Represented by Rammstein.
So by
For all the
Rammstein.
visual listeners out there.
Yeah, another bit problematic at the moment, but you know, maybe people watching this video in the future, maybe everything's all right. But yeah, obviously Rammstein, you know, they're not only one of the they're not only the biggest industrial band, probably one of the biggest bands of all time. But in case you don't know, there's other bands in that genre like Ministry, Static X. I'm struggling to think of more, but there's definitely more. Rob Zombie, he's an he's an industrial band.
It's an all right genre. There's loads of great bands. I
Like-
could only name 3.
But yeah,
Personally.
what's your opinion on industrial metal?
I'll admit I've not listened to a lot, and I think Godflesh.
Godflesh, forgot them.
Are my favorite industrial band. However, as a genre, I'm going C tier.
And why is that?
It's not all the industrial metal I've listened to. Kind of boring. Right. I'm gonna be. People who are listening or watching are gonna be. Nathan is such a negative bastard. Right.
To be fair though, if there's any time to be negative, it's a thing like this. Like when you do a tier list, there's no way to not come across negative because we're giving our opinions on genres, what we think. We're not saying these genres are bad. We're just saying that, you know, we don't particularly, you know, either like or we love them. So yeah, fire away, Nathan. Don't you worry about any negative.
Right. Okay. But I just find it a bit boring. And there's only ever a few standouts. Like I like Rammstein. Do you know what I mean? I like Rammstein. I like Godflesh. I've listened to others. Static X. I ain't gonna lie. No. Don't do it for me. Really don't do it for me. I find it derivative. And I know people are gonna give me shit for that. I just find it derivative. It just didn't do it for me. Not my cup of tea. Didn't like it. Right? And I find that sentiment goes for most industrial bands I've ever listened to. Except for a few, which is why I'd say C tier.
Fair. So my opinion on industrial metal, I think obviously Rammstein, Rob Zombie to me, even Static X, I think they're standouts to me because my issue with industrial metal is I feel like it's very repetitive. Like I can't tell you how many songs like start like dum 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 dum, and it'll be the same sort of like tune throughout, which is okay. Like this is a thing. Like I could listen to industrial metal in chunks. Like, you know, if it comes on in a club, or like, you know, a bar, like I could like, oh yeah, nice beat. I could get into this. If you put 40 minutes of that in front of me, I'm really gonna start to get bored. Thing is with Rammstein have got a lot of different variety in their musicianship. You know, they've also got like piano pieces, orchestral bits, some experimental sections, electronics, and I think that really breaks it up for me. Well, if you listen to the standard industrial band, I feel like it's that sort of same riff, and I can fucking hear it in my head right now because I know I've heard that riff many times.
It feels like you're in like the blood orgy scene in Blade.
Exactly. Except that was fun because it had vampires. If without the vampires, I don't know how fun it'd actually be.
But that's the thing; it's without all the fun parts
and without Wesley Snipes.
Yeah,
This is what the genre needs.
Yeah, Do you know what I mean? If at every industrial show it was a mandatory that Wesley Snipes had to be there,
Can you imagine?
I'd enjoy it.
Introducing for the 1,000th time Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, if that was the mandatory thing, and they squirted blood from the fucking ceiling, you know, yeah, I'd love industrial metal. I'd see it every night. But I think I honestly can never see myself ever listening to a full album and thinking, good that,
Yeah.
except for Godflesh around Rammstein.
No, exactly. I feel like it becomes like you just go into a sort of trance, which might be the selling point of the genre. But for me, I need a lot more variety. Like, sometimes I listen to genres like tech death when it's like changing every 2 seconds. You know, ADHD brain. It's got to have some fucking changes in there. Or I'm gonna go crazy. So,
Right.
but I'll say
So,
this: like, the bands that are really good in industrial are really good. But like as a whole, the fact that I couldn't name 5 bands that I really like off it is kind of speaks volumes to me.
oh my, we should send just this snippet to Dylan because he loves industrial metal, don't he? We
That
should
doesn't surprise me.
send this snippet to Dylan. He's gonna have an aneurysm.
I want to see him name 10 industrial bands, though.
I don't think he'd be able to.
I don't think he'd be able to either. If you listen
I
now, Dylan, in the comments, if you can name 10 industrial bands, I'll let you off the hook.
yeah, but you know what? Now we've actually been really discussing it. I don't even think C.
I think D.
I was about to say D. I
Yeah.
think D tier.
Damn, I think we're agreeing on more than what we thought. Yeah, I think that's a fair place for it. I mean, final thoughts, like I said.
You just put them
Um,
in E, Brad.
final thoughts.
They
My
were
sub
already in D.
it's like my subconscious in it. It's like, what the fuck are you doing?
What are you doing, bro?
Hang on.
What have you? Just full screen it. Just full screen it. Ah, any visual listeners were very, very sorry.
I might just keep this in, to be fair. Can't even work a tier list. But yeah, I think D's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not for me. It's just not it doesn't have enough variety.
Yeah, it's the fact that we couldn't name. I can when I think industrial, I can only think Rammstein, Godflesh, and I've definitely listened to more bands
Oh,
that are
absolutely.
industrial.
Because
I
industrial's a
don't
popular
remember them.
genre.
Yeah, like I just don't remember them. But the fact that I've listened to more and only remember two out of probably the like a good 30, 40 that I've actually probably actually listened to, I think that speaks volumes as a genre.
You know what's a good analogy for industrial metal? Like, it's better in a club than it is to listen to at home. Like, it's the same thing with like EDM or something like that. Like, if you're like in a club, you're a bit fucking drunk and you want like a beat to just keep going to, like, that'd be great. But not on my way to work to my 9 to 5, you know what I mean? I feel
So
like it's just not gonna fly
what you're saying is, right? Industrial metal is the music equivalent.
of EDM.
No. Right? Is the music equivalent of what Fast and Furious is to movies. It's okay if I'm drunk.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like if I'm drunk and I don't think about it too much and it's just there, I'll love it.
Yeah,
But if I'm sober, fuck that.
pretty much. Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. Right. Let's move on to thrash metal, which I feel like everyone's listened to thrash at some point. It might not
I'm
be
gonna
your
get
thing.
bad for my opinion.
That's fine. That's what we're here for. But shall I start us off this time?
Yeah, I think you should start us off.
I'll
We've
start us
been
off.
I've been going first for the last three.
So yeah, obviously thrash it does have a special place in my heart in a way because I feel like that was the first genre I ever got into of metal. I listened to Metallica first. Obviously, I did my trip through the big four with Slayer and Megadeth and Anthrax. Like, both Metallica and Megadeth were my favorite bands at some point. I'm pretty sure Slayer was almost there. They had the great new wave of thrash of Municipal Waste and Havoc, and um, obviously Exodus, Testament, Overkill, great bands. It's a difficult one for me because I don't really listen to much thrash anymore, and I can't tell you like the last time I've heard a thrash band that really took my my fancy. I still listen sometimes to the older ones or the ones that I used to love, but it's very repetitive after the time, and I feel like I can't tell you how many times a band has tried to copy another band in that genre. Like once someone like finds themselves, like every band just wants to be that band. Like, from everyone wanting to be Slayer to everyone wanting to be Exodus, and then further along the line, everyone wants to be Minimal Waste, everyone wants to be DRI. Like the list goes on. But at the same time, it's a great genre because of how influential it was. Like there wouldn't be death metal, there wouldn't be black metal, there wouldn't be half the bands if it wasn't for the bands that started it all. And there is some great musicians in there, like some really notable ones. But it's difficult for me to rank because yeah, I don't listen to it much anymore. And I feel
I
like
was, I'm not gonna lie, when you said, you said piqued my fancy, I've been holding in a
nobody's
laugh.
nobody's ever said that in a metal tier list, have they?
As
Piques my
as if
fancy.
as if you're like a fair maid and fucking it's like none of these nights are piquing my fancy, daddy. It's like yeah, that fucking none of them piqued my fancy.
Probably not the best way to describe a metal tier list, but
I haven't piqued my fancy.
yeah, Nate, what's your take on thrash?
I think like the thing is, it's an important genre. I think it is an important genre, but I'm like trying to see it as the how it is even like now as well, and like because I feel like we can't judge the genre as a whole without judging what it's like in the modern day as well,
I
and
agree.
respecting what has happened in the past. So I think now I'd say I'd say C or B tier because I don't think there's that many interesting thrash bands coming out in the moment. Like, for example, like so, like as like a genre of importance, it's S tier with the like death metal because it's done a lot for the genre. But as as a genre now, or as a genre over the last few years, it's a B tier or C. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
I would agree, and I would put it in B. Like I said, like you said before, it's the one of the most important genres, if not the most important metal genre for what's to come after it. But modern times are important, and death metal is, in our opinion, it's the best time around for death metal right now. You've still got all the old bands, and how the fucking new bands are crushing it just the same, like if not more, which is obviously controversial to say, but I completely think it is. Well, thrash
yeah.
metal, I can't remember the last time I've heard a band that really not piques my fancy, but that really blew me away. Like
The
there was
last one, I remember Power Trip.
Power
That was
Trip,
the last one.
exactly. And that was like what 2016, 2017 when they popped up. Um, and then there's the resurgence of thrash before that, bands like Municipal Waste, Havoc, great bands, but that was like 2004, mate. Where's all the new ones?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think there's that many strong thrash metal bands to say that it's still an S tier. I think as well. I think as a genre, there's not been a lot of pushing the boat out.
Yeah, and that might not be a fault to the bands. Maybe it's just like thrash is meant to be fast, and like there's not too much you can do with it. I guess as opposed to death metal, which can come in many forms, like in forms of tempo, orchestral stuff, and like I feel like with thrash metal bands, the ones that are good are the ones that usually incorporate something else now. Because if you
Like
do
Power Trip,
straightforward thrash,
hardcore, yeah,
yeah, Toxic Holocaust, black metal infused, so
yeah. So
difficult.
I agree with you with B. I'm comfortable with putting it in B. B. I feel like Jesus Christ, we're gonna get a lot of shit from thrash heads, but I honestly would say B
Passionate
because
boys.
yeah, I would say B just from like the fact that when I listen to it now, I tend to be bored, but I understand the importance of that genre. And like,
Yeah,
I understand there is probably great new thrash metal bands out. I've just not found them.
yeah.
However, I do find as a genre, it can. all sort of blur into one. Like if you went to a thrash only gig, let's face it, it's gonna be like 4 hours of your life where you're kind of like, yeah, they sounded similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sounded similar. They. I don't think there's a lot of people pushing the boat out with that genre. I think you can do a lot with that genre, and I don't want it always to be negative. It was a very important fucking genre. Do you know what I mean? Like it, I don't. I'm not gonna ever say that it wasn't. I'm not gonna, but I'm judging it how it is now, and how I feel about it now. I'm comfortable with B.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption for Thrash. Yeah, any advice to the bands? Try harder, bro. Do something else. Nah, I'm kidding. Again, yeah, good musicians, but I think thrash needs another resurgence when something new needs to be put into the genre, and then maybe we can bump it up a bit. But I think that's fair. Um, this is gonna be a fun one. So next we've got
Oh,
power
this is
metal.
gonna be our biggest debate. I really think.
It's gonna be power metal next. So here I've got Power Wolf, which is actually a power metal band that Nathan likes, but as a
I
whole, if you've listened to the podcast before, Nathan is not the biggest power metal fan. So I'll let you take the wheel first.
I'll need to preference, right? I don't listen to Powerwolf on streaming services. However, they were great at Bloodstock, but I was also very drunk. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing. I feel like if I'd have been sober, I'd have been like, I'm going back to camp. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, I'm gonna sound like a proper negative Nancy. I just don't like power metal, right? It's not for me. I understand if you like it. I respect you for liking it, right? It's fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not meant to be taken seriously. It's a happy-go-lucky fucking genre. Here's the fucking thing. Here's
Nathan
the
doesn't
thing,
like happy.
right? If I on it, if I hear a riff and then I'll hear is and the dragon flew over my head or some shit like that, right? That's in so many battle fucking like power metal songs and like fantasy, and they're all in costumes. I will blow my fucking brains out because that shit is the worst for me. I don't like that stuff. I like it in, I don't want it in my music. I like to have something I can relate to. I don't want to be walking around the street with in my headphones and listening to a guy being like, I'm a knight, I'm walking up a mountain, I'm gonna kill a dragon, I'm gonna ride my horse, right? Under like this like this just like really fast, like kind of like really like just annoying sounding beat. It sounds stupid, but the genre annoys me. Like hearing it annoys me, right? And
Yeah,
I don't have anything against the bands that play it, the people who like it. You do you. You enjoy what you enjoy. You write what you like. You're writing what you want to make, right? Respect. Complete respect. For me, it grates on me because I like to listen to someone's lyrics and be like, that shit's like really spoke to me in the sense of like I've gone through that, and it has to have an element of that for me to like it. So for me,
yeah.
power metal is an F tier.
So yeah, I completely get what you mean. I think if you don't like that fantasy infused, I mean, it's the same with films. Like my mum doesn't like fantasy films. She hates Lord of the Rings and shit like that. I can't convince her to like anything remotely of the kind. But I don't know. I view power metal like I view movies. Like it's the escapism part of it, and I think I understand why people like power metal, and I think that's the reason why I do. Is that when you listen to it, it is singing about like dragons and wizards and shit like that. So you kind of whisk your way to another world, which is what I do like about it. And I think like power metal does have some really strong vocalists. Some of them like much like death metal can go as low as possible. Like the way that they can boost it to high grounds with power metal is very impressive. Some of them are great musicians. Um, so yeah, it's a difficult one because I've got nothing to fault it on in a way. but I wouldn't rank it an S tier because I don't love it as much as the other ones. I think the only thing I can say about it is some of them can get a bit, I don't know, repetitive, which I feel like I've said that about industrial. And there was a lot of difference in power metal, but like I think compared to some of the other genres, there's only so much you can do with it. So it's a difficult one for me to rank.
I'm disagreeing heartily. I think it's an F tier. Personally. Right, all right. Let me bring your mind back to Bloodstock 2021.
Hmm.
No, 2022. Right? Callum, I love you, right? But what I'm about to say will upset you. If you're watching this, Callum, I love you. There's no offense to this. However, this was a great moment for me at back at camp. Right, when Callum were playing like fucking power metal for like 45 minutes, I wanted to kill myself. Like, I'm not even joking. I was like, I was sat there. Actually, bleep out that bit.
No, I don't think I will.
No, honestly, I was just sat there going, I just want to. I don't want to be here. Like, it sounds so. I sound so negative but I don't have anything against it. It's just like the genre. It's hard to explain. The genre annoys me. That's all I can say. The genre annoys me.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. It's definitely not for everyone.
Like,
It's a very specific kind of taste. It's very much different to a lot of the other genres of metal. Um, but I don't know. I think it's got some listenability for me at least. I do enjoy it. It's not something I'd swing on all the time. I've got to be in a very like specific mood to listen to something that up happy and upbeat because generally I gravitate towards, I guess, more angry or sad sounding music. I've got to be in a very good mood to listen to this shit. I appreciate what they do. Um,
see, I
I'd
think that's where me and you differ, because I think this is my problem with it. Right? You just said like positive and happy shit, right? And I think that's my problem. I don't like positive and happy.
I know you don't.
Like, I find, like people who are like really, really happy. Do you know what I mean? When everyone's like, then they're like, hiya, and they've just got like a smile beaming.
I
I don't
remember.
trust those fuckers. Like, what have you done for you not to like be slightly dead inside? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't like positive and happy too much. I'm a very miserable person, but I feel like people are also kind of miserable, and don't gravitate to like, hey, yeah, positivity all the time, right? And my people, I can fuck with them, but power metal as a genre doesn't represent for me. It's all happy. Do you know what I mean? Like, in a way, and it's like the life isn't like that. Though. Do you know what I mean? Like, my
but
brain
but
just can't
again,
gel with it.
I would say that it's very much like movies. Like it's an escapism movie, like for music, like how Blade Runner is, or something like that, or Lord of the Rings, or Witcher. You know, it's just in a musical form. Same with
Yeah,
like how a horror movie would be like Cannibal Corpse. Like there's different types of it, and I think you just got to be in the mood for it. Which I get,
that
which is
that's
it's
the thing.
different for sure.
That's the
But
thing. I hate happy endings in movies as well.
but I think
Like,
I think I think what this comes down to really, because I'd say we're very split down the middle. So to me, I think it has to be in C tier.
right. I feel F, but I will I will rebuttal that C, because I still think it's a little bit too high. And I will raise you a D.
I think C because I mean, so you giving your opinion, I'll give mine. As a whole of a genre, like it's obviously very popular. A lot of people listen to it. It's got its place in the genres of heavy metal. Like obviously you got these sub genres of sub genres. but this is like quite a big one. Like I'd say, like, after death metal, thrash metal, black metal, things like that, it would probably be next due to its popularity and of like bands of influence. Also, very talented vocalists. I think a C tier would be a fair judgment for it.
Okay, I'll consolidate and go C. I feel like you won't budge. You know what? I feel like such a dick because I feel like so negative, and I hate being negative. It's just not my cup of tea, and I'll leave it at that.
That's fair.
I'm
So,
sorry to all the power metal bands.
I mean, it's a tier list. People have got to be in different ranks, and that's all we can do in it.
Yeah.
So moving on, this will be a bit of an easier one. We've got deathcore next. Waving the flag is Suicide Silence. Again, deathcore, a big genre after the 2000s. You might see some notable bands like Thy Art Is Murder, Carnifex, Whitechapel, just to name a few. What's your thoughts on deathcore, Neff?
So my knee jerk is B tier, and I feel like you will argue with me on this.
Go
My
on.
knee jerk is B tier.
Explain your
Because
reasoning.
I genuinely do think there's some great bands in the genre. There's some hard ass riffs, but I don't think we can go S tier because I feel, in terms of that element, death metal trumps it. I don't think we can go A tier because I also feel like there's a lot of copycat deathcore bands that aren't A tier. So I feel like it doesn't fit in my head right to go A tier. I feel like it's a solid B tier, but a high B tier, almost A. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, deathcore is a hard one. I'd say like the bands that I love in deathcore are probably some of my favorite bands of all time, and are probably going to remain to be there. And a lot of bands, especially like some of the notable ones, are trying to experiment and do different things. Despite being so influential in their spots. But I agree with the copycatting in deathcore. I think there's a lot of bands that won't try anything new and will just do what the big bands have done. I don't know if that's just down to how the genre is, because it can be easy to be shoeboxed with deathcore. Hard to experiment with other stuff because it's very much like the open chord, the breakdowns. Like this is fundamental deathcore stuff. Obviously we had stuff like Lorna Shore come out and Slaughter to Prevail, which I think changed it a bit. But now we're getting another wave of copycat bands that want to be them too, and it's obviously very notable that's happened. So,
Mate,
but
so noticeable, so noticeable. Like whenever you go, oh, let's see what's cracking with deathcore. Lorna Shore, Lorna Shore, Lorna Shore, Lorna Shore, Lorna Shore, but like not Lorna Shore songs, bands that sound exactly like Lorna Shore. And I feel that that's bringing the genre down, because it's like, just because they did it doesn't mean you have to.
exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they did it well. You're going to look like an idiot if you try doing it, because people will know you're trying to copy to the fucking hellfire. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why I appreciate deathcore bands that are unique. Like, fucking Suicide Silence, fucking unique. Been unique since their inception.
And still unique now, like even with their
Signs
new
of the
stuff.
Swarm, who we interviewed last week. Check out the interview. Signs of the Swarm, who we interviewed, well, not last week, the week before, right? Again,
Crazy stuff they're doing. Yeah.
Crazy stuff. Do you know what I mean? It stands out on its own. And I feel like the bands that stand out on their own definitely stand out on their own. And they're noticeably great bands, right? There's also a few bands that are older, kind of fell off. Like, I don't want to push shots. Thy Art Is Murder, I feel like they haven't pushed themselves as like in terms of changing as much.
But I'll say this.
Great band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also I feel like because the last album, Human Target, that came out was quite a few years ago, we've only seen like a one or two singles since then. I feel like once the new album comes out, we can properly judge, because the last album was sick.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I do agree. I think like I know it's not easy probably to be a deathcore band and try and do something different, but still remain in that genre because, it is in its form quite a simplistic genre in a way. Like, in terms of the musicianship, it's not trying to push the bandwagon. But I do know bands that are doing that, like you said, Signs of Swarm, Shadow of Intent. Like some of these bands, incredible, doing really cool things. So there's no excuse not to really try something else.
Yeah,
Especially if the big
exactly.
bands are doing it. Like the big bands could become complacent, stuff like Carnifex and fucking I've got blank. The big
Uh,
bands.
you're doing a Glimmer classic. Like all the greats, like
Whitechapel, like when they released The Valley, super
yeah,
interesting
but
album.
right, here's the thing: the new Whitechapel record, didn't like it.
Yeah, it was a bit of a snooze fest, but like before that, my point is being like the release of Valley before that, and for a band that's been around as long as they have and still managing to push the boundaries,
Or
you
try
know,
something new.
yeah,
I mean, I respect it. For
exactly, because
me,
they could
didn't
become
stick the
complacent.
landing. Respect. I respect trying something else because they could have just made the Saw is the Law, or like pretty much every single fucking like out. They could have just made all the albums from the early 2000s over and over again, and people would have still bought them. So yeah, the thing is, I respect the genre. I also think though something has to be said in regards to how it is now. So it's great, but it's also not as good. And let me
But
explain.
go on.
No, let me. I've got a great point, and if I lose this, I'll be mad at myself. Right? When it first came out, it felt like its own thing. Right? Felt like something new. Now, as the genre as a whole, I don't think anyone's to blame for it, any band or anything like that. Right? I feel like it's just kind of being enveloped by metal. There's nothing that stand out about it as the genre. You listen to a deathcore band. However, what separates them from, like modern metal anyway? Not really much. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like that's why it also has to be B tier for me.
I would argue to say that it deserves to be an A tier because we've obviously put thrash in B tier because no good bands are coming out. Now, even compared to death metal or maybe some of the genres, there isn't as many coming out that are notable. It's still better than thrash and still better than some genres that we put below it because there is bands that are pushing the boundaries. And I think like the bands that are legendary, from different periods of time, from Suicide Silence back in the early 2000s to Thy Art Is Murder in the 2010s to Lorna Shore in our time. Like, there's still so many bands that are like pushing the envelope and like driving metal forward and making it, for better or worse, more mainstream, which I think is what the genre needs to stay alive. Um,
Okay.
so, and for its cultural benefits, for how it's got younger people involved in it, I think it deserves an A tier. Even though I do think I agree, I think a lot of copycat bands and a lot of variety needs to be put back into it.
Okay.
I think it still remains strong.
You know what? I'll agree because I wanted to put it in high B tier anyway. So I will agree with A tier. I'm comfortable with putting it in A tier. I don't think it's as high as death metal,
I
but
agree.
I'm comfortable with saying it's an A tier.
So next we've got black metal. Shall I go first?
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna have again differing opinions, but
Okay.
not overly different opinions.
So my opinion about black metal. Um, I think that black metal is the same as death metal in a way because obviously legendary 90s period, some of these bands even influence other genres of metal such as deathcore, death metal itself, thrash metal. I think we've talked about it before. Black metal is a genre that can be molded and placed into a lot of different things, and you can add a lot to it. It's like a base level ingredient. Um, and I think the black metal train has never stopped rolling, even though it's not for everyone. I think there's always good bands in black metal coming out, like Ethereal Shroud, Imperial Triumphant, like fucking so many good bands. And then you've got a legendary like 90s period that really, for better or worse, given the controversy, did propel the metal genre a lot further. And I think they brought some sort of like mysticism to the genre too, in the way of like, their symbols and just the way that they presented themselves. And I think I don't know. I think it's cool. I think they added like a coolness aspect to metal that I think it needed in that period. And again, like, even now, there's so many like interesting genres. I think when you look at experimental side of like pushing the envelope, I think like black metal probably does it one of the best. Um, Even stuff like White Ward with the jazz elements, super cool. What's your thoughts?
I was gonna say A tier, but then as you was talking, I was also thinking about what you were saying, but I was also thinking about like I feel like it is an S tier.
I think it
More
is
I've
an S tier.
thought about it because I was originally if I had gone first, I'd have been like probably A tier. But then I really thought before I spoke, and was like, actually, it probably is an A tier, just because how much it still influences the genre, how much it still kind of goes along. The only thing that I could think that kind of marks it down is the fact that it can be kind of overused.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's a lot of people that go, hey, it's got black metal infused. It's like black metal infused deathcore, black metal infused metalcore, black metal infused hardcore. And it's like, it's kind of like, fuck me. All right. Stop,
Like
stop.
milking it too much.
Yeah, stop milking it. Right. But I feel like that kind of that's more of a benefit of the genre being what it is.
Because everyone wants to use a bit of it.
Yeah, everyone wants to use a bit of it. And I feel like that's actually more I thought about it, not actually negative, but more of a positive because it shows it's a malleable, useful genre that can also add a lot to a band's sound. So for that, I feel like S tier.
I agree, and I think like there's not many genres that I could listen to at any point in the day when I feel like black metal has a band for every mood. Like, they're even quite relaxing to listen to if you want to put it on in the background while you do your cooking. Sounds weird, but I do that sometimes. But then you've got stuff like Immortal and Abath, which are like great for just a good headbang fest. You've got shit like Mole, a shoegaze infused black metal band, and that album, to be fair, was one of the best albums I've ever listened to in my life. And sometimes you do get those bands in black metal that so atmospheric, so well done that it can't be topped. So I think when we talk about a train that's never stopped rolling, much like Cannibal Corpse and death metal and as a whole, I feel like black metal is just right next to it in a way. I don't like it as much as death metal, but it's also never stopped producing good bands, just like death metal has.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's S tier.
Let's get that baby up there. So next we've got Corpaclani representing folk metal, one of Nathan's other favorite genres.
You know
So
what?
again,
This is gonna be the fucking power metal argument again. It's gonna be the power metal argument.
so yeah, folk metal stuff like Ailstorm, Corpaclani. Um, I do know more for fuck's sake. Ensiferum, Vanaheim, like
Well, to be fair, we've interviewed a lot of folk metal bands, and they've all been very talented musicians and really nice people.
yes,
And I have enjoyed the music I've listened to. Like when we've been interviewing them, but like when we've been prepping to interview them. Do you know what I mean? I get why people like it. I think for me, it's not something I would naturally gravitate to.
yeah, I do love folk metal. To be fair, again, it's not something that I listen to all the time, and I've got to be in the mood for it. But I would say that it should rank higher than power metal because I think like power metal is very overly happy, very intense. But I feel like folk metal can be quite relaxing, or it can be like just a good instrumental. It's not always too intense. It might be about like you know dragons or whatever. It also sometimes might be about history, might be about other stuff. But I think as a whole, like there's more variety in that musicianship than there is in power metal for me. I think
Okay,
it would rank higher.
I would agree. I would agree. However, in the terms of the list, I don't think folk metal is on the same level as thrash. So I would agree that it's higher. I would say it is a C, and I would say it's higher than power metal. So in my opinion, I feel like we need to move power metal down to D because we can't say I can't. I think you agree. I don't think folk metal is on the same level as thrash.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Yeah, I don't know
You know
if
what
I
I mean?
prefer it more than
In the
thrash actually.
context of the
Yeah.
list, right? It's not on. It can't be on the same level,
All right,
right?
I'll agree with you there actually, because yeah, I do like power metal, but like if I was to listen to like folk or power, it would be stronger. But then if I think about the thrash metal bands, its influence and what I enjoy, it wouldn't be on the same level. So yeah, let's move Corpaclani up there. Thing is, there's not really too much for me to say about folk. I like it. I don't have any gripes with it. I don't think it's bad. I don't particularly love it as much as other genres. So I guess it just fits in C. This is like a grand spanking mid tier.
Yeah. You know, I agree with that. I would rate it higher than power metal because out of my experience, I've enjoyed a lot. I've enjoyed folk metal more than I have enjoyed power. I don't think it's on the same level of thrash, which is why obviously we've moved it down. One thing that I will sort of say is I think folk metal is really good depending on how it's executed.
I agree. I think like stuff like Vanaheim, like not to
Yeah,
bum them up because we
like
had them on the podcast, but like that album is like so interesting and experimental.
yeah, exactly. I really liked that because it want. It's not like Tankard. They're a folk metal band. They're great on me.
They're a thrash metal band.
Tank. Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Like folky thrash. Can we agree with that?
Nah.
Okay.
They just sing about beer.
Name another folk metal band. I can't remember. There's one that really grates on me. I
Eleviti.
no, it's not Alavita.
No,
I
great,
can't
but to be
remember the
fair.
name. But there's one that's like, you know what? I'd class Ailstorm as a power metal folk band. I just realized because they talk a lot about pirates that then also made folk music about being pirates, right? They're great on me. They're not the
I
band
would
I'm
say
thinking
that
of.
I don't
They're
know.
not the band I'm
I
thinking
would
of.
say like a folk party band. Like they've got that party atmosphere, a bit like Andrew WK, you know?
Yeah, but I think I've enjoyed folk metal if it's executed in the right way. If it goes along like down like the same lines as power metal, then I just kind of tune out.
Yeah,
But
I'd say that's
I
fair.
think if it's executed well, I think it can be better. It's better than power metal.
Yeah, honestly, I've got nothing else to say about folk metal. Like I like it. I don't have anything wrong with it. So let's move on. So this is going to be an interesting genre for me because I don't particularly love this genre, even though I know people do, but I can't really name you many good bands out of it.
Yeah, I
So
feel like
it's grindcore.
I feel like we're gonna agree on this.
So obviously I put Napalm Death. Everyone knows Napalm Death. And then I feel like if you to ask any more, it's gonna be really hard. I know Carcass used to be grindcore, but they were better when they turned into a death metal band. You know, I'd say Cattle Decap were sort of grindcore, and then they were better as a death metal band. So you can see where I'm going. This the only other grindcore band I can name you that I think is really great is Wormrot, but they're also doing other stuff with grindcore. I think as a genre alone, it's not very strong, and I hate to sound like an outsider listening to the genre, but it sounds like noise.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I feel like the thing is, the fact that Napalm Death is grindcore almost pushes it up the list. That's how good of a band they are, right?
Exactly.
If we were just judging Napalm Death alone and not the genre, S, because Napalm Death is an S tier band,
S tier band,
right?
but a needle
But
in the haystack.
needle in the haystack, needle in the haystack, right? I do find a lot of it kind of just like, no, not for me. Like I like the fact that it's extreme. Do you know what I mean? Like that it's really pushed the boat out there. Like, it's not purposely not for anyone, not for everyone, right? But I can only honestly name Napalm Death as the most notable grindcore band.
Yeah, that's it. And like I said, I love Wormrot. Like I think they're great, but like I think I've tried to give grindcore a few goes. Like maybe we might be wrong. Maybe show us a band in the comments that will change our mind and we'll be whisked away by this credible band. But like to me, I feel like they're just trying to make noise, which people might say, oh, that's what black metal tried to do, or what punk tried to do. But I feel like they actually made songs and it
Yeah.
had structure. Well, this just sounds like let's just make absolute noise wall. and
It's
it doesn't
it's
sound good to me.
anti-music.
It's anti-music, which cool, nice message, but I'm not gonna listen to you because it doesn't sound good.
So where would you put them on the list?
F.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'd put it on F because honestly, the only band that would push him up is Napalm Death, but I can't judge an entire genre on based on one band.
exactly. Like again, change our mind if you can, but from what I've listened to, it just doesn't seem like a very strong genre.
Yeah, I agree.
Nothing more to say. Next, we've got new metal. Nathan, do you want to take us away?
I don't know about new metal because I think there's a lot of terrible new metal bands.
Definitely.
Like that's the thing. There's a lot of terrible new metal bands. Like, but I feel like based on what it did in the 90s for metal, it's an S in a way or a high A.
Yeah, it's really tough because I completely agree with you. I don't think any other genre of metal has propelled it as much as it has for new metal. To the point where these songs are still played in clubs now, for better or worse. I can't stand listening to these mainstream songs by these bands anymore. But like it's still really popular. And if you
Yeah,
ask anybody who's heard Limp Bizkit, who's heard of the Slipknot, like everyone, if they'll say, "Oh, you listen to metal, or you like Slipknot," then like that happens all the time. I don't know if it happens in other countries, but we're from the UK. If anyone hears that you listen to metal, that is the first thing they'll say to you. Somehow it's ingrained in everyone's mind. Slipknot is metal, is the face of metal. The same with like
yeah.
other genres as well.
You're not gonna. I'm not gonna lie. Limp Bizkit, couple tracks.
A couple of good tracks, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there's not a time when Limp Bizkit comes on that I'm not singing along to it at least.
exactly. And I think Fred
Like,
Durst is a great frontman as well. Like, say what you want about him, but like, he is a figure. And I think the great thing about new metal is that they've got strong frontmen, which I think other genres have tried to be, oh, don't want to do that. But you got to realize how important that is. And you can tell in other genres of metal when you've got Corpse Grinder, you've got fucking like Riley Gale from Power Trip. Like when you've got a strong frontman, the band becomes better and they're better live as well. And a
yeah,
lot of these bands, Jonathan Davis, Fred Durst, Corey Taylor, say what you want about them, but they have great stage presence.
yeah. That's the thing. There's a lot of terrible new metal bands though as well. So like, because all right, here's the weird thing about new metal. In a way, in terms of popularity and like what it did for the genre, was easily one of the best genres to ever happen to metal.
I agree.
But in terms of actual good music, one of the best, one of the worst. Because for every great band, there was another 20 that was terrible.
That is very true.
And that's why I'm finding it hard to tier it. Because I'm like, on one hand, it got me into metal. It got fucking thousands, probably all the people, probably all the young people that you will see at a show got into it through that, even now. So like I feel like that alone S tier because it's done a lot. Because everyone that I know that's gotten into metal first got into it with new metal. I could be wrong. I think if anyone that's 35 and below got into it through new metal,
Yeah.
anyone that's like up there didn't. But now, like it's weighing out. Like there's a lot more people, that have gotten into it purely from new metal. So I feel it's an S tier or at very least a high A.
Yeah, what I would rank it down from an S tier is the same argument we had earlier on, which was, is it relevant now? Which it's
Yeah,
not.
that's the thing.
Like
Yeah.
even the bands that are the biggest in new metal, they might be still going, but are any of them making new metal anymore? No. Like some might be, but like, Korn, Slipknot, they've all moved on, they're all doing other stuff. Deftones doing other stuff. Like, nobody's really making that 90s style new metal anymore. You might get some newer
I mean,
bands coming out, but it
I
comes
think
across
for
really
good
cringe.
reason.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a product of its time. It's
it is.
cringy, but like it's more people. I would never go. Today I'm gonna listen to new metal only.
Yeah, doesn't happen
I'm
for me
never gonna
either.
do. I would never do that.
I'll
But
dip into some bands, like
if
I'll listen to Deftones or something, but yeah, but
if it's on, I'm not arguing. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not gonna go turn that off. I mean, depending on the band.
Yeah,
Depending on the
definitely
band.
dependent on the band.
Right. But if someone bangs on Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit, I'm not arguing. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm all right. I'm right. I'm not hate I don't hate it. You know what I mean? I don't love it, but I don't hate it. Right. So for that, I would say A tier. Let's go A tier.
I agree with it here. Yeah, like it's so influential. There's the bands still selling out massive arenas. I still like a lot of the bands. Again, for every one band, like you said, there's about 50 other shit ones. And there's not really much going on in new metal. Like I said, it's product of its time. There's not many bands coming out that are really pushing the wheel with it. And when they try and do new metal now, it just comes across really cringy.
It is,
But
yeah.
you've got to pay respects, and I don't know. I don't really like it when people shit on new metal and say it's a bad genre because it's not. Like everyone probably listens to that at some point, and I feel like it's still very important. It's not a
It's
bad genre.
the older kids that say it's terrible.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people our age got into it through like either pop punk or new metal.
exactly.
But I find as aged wise, I've been on more of a pop punk kick of wanting to listen to nostalgia
Yeah,
than I have with new metal, which is why it's an A tier.
agreed.
I won't go back and go, yeah.
No, I completely agree. So now we've got new wave of British heavy metal. Leading the way for that is Judas Priest. I'll start with this one then. So, hot take. I think Nathan can probably agree. I think out of all the metal genres, besides, I'd say the big four of British new wave, I think it's the most stale genre in the entire catalogue of metal.
100% agree.
Like every
100%
band,
agree.
as much as they try, just sounds like these four bands. And I
Yeah.
try and find me one that doesn't. I just do not like it. It just brings nothing new. And I feel like, especially with this, like the people are so passionate in the bands that do this, that they just want to be these bands, but you're not going to be these bands. Like these bands have come out 40 years ago. They've wore the t-shirt. They know what they're doing.
Yeah,
You
there's
can
a
you can play what you want, but like I just feel like there's no room for experimentation. Like every band just comes across very samey.
yeah.
But again, like I don't think I could put it in F tier because you've got Black Sabbath and you've got Judas Priest, you've got Motorhead. Like
Here's
they
the
would they,
thing.
they would not be metal without these. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but here's the thing, Brad. Here's the thing. I would say it's F tier because, like you said, any other band outside of those few, sound the same as the other ones, right? So that it capped off at them, in my opinion. Like it stopped at them. Anyone else, like Motorhead, great band. Fucking Judas Priest, great band. Iron Maiden, couple tracks. I'm not a massive Iron Maiden fan. Couple
No, me
tracks.
neither.
Black Sabbath, fucking love Black Sabbath.
Same.
Do you know what I mean? But name any more out of the four of them.
Yeah, that is the issue. I just don't know how I feel about putting a band that, these genre that started it all in the F tier.
I think the problem is credit where credit's due, but it didn't get better than those four bands. And if we're judging it as a genre, having four bands, admittedly, four quintessential and important and such important bands in there, is not strong enough to bump it from F.
Yeah, okay, I agree with that because I think like I guess we got to look past the bands, even if they are four of the biggest bands and greatest bands of all time. You still can't. I mean, we can't do one argument for grindcore and say there's like one or two good bands, and then put this above it. It's the same argument, really, isn't it? And which
Yeah,
way you slice it.
that's what I was trying to get at. It's the same argument as grindcore. Like I personally feel like no matter what you do, if you try doing it in the now, right? Honestly, I feel like if you tried doing new metal now, it would be received better than trying to do new wave of like new wave of British heavy metal now.
Yeah, I agree, and I don't. I mean, you can like what you want. If you like these bands, fair enough. But for me, I just can't understand why people do because it just sounds generic and
But I
boring.
I I love Motorhead. Like, you
I
know what I
love
mean?
Motorhead.
I love Black Sabbath, and I love Judas Priest again. Maiden. No, I've never been a massive fan, but there's a couple tracks. But the fact that the book stops there, and
So it says a lot.
I honestly wouldn't be able to name you any more outside of that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm completely fine with them being F tier. So next we've got doom metal. Nathan, hit us off.
Doom metal's a funny one, right? I I don't want to. I almost don't want to put it low because that there is a few great bands, and I think it's again like it's sort of like the same black metal argument because it's low on the base level and there's not a lot to it. You can do a lot with it, but some of it is fucking boring. Like some of it is just like just Jesus take me now sort of
Yeah.
shit. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, yeah, we've got a 25-minute song where every minute we hit one note. So all in all, about yeah, it's 1 BPM, mate. And you're there like, no, it's like 1 BPH, 1 BPM every fucking hour. Um, and I agree. Something I think there's a lot that. Then again, Primitive Man, great, but there's more going for a Primitive Man than just bass doom metal.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
but there's so many good doom metal bands to be fair. Like, Warf Lurch, Temple of Void, Paradise Lost, My
they're
Dying
got.
Bride.
I'd say My Dying Bride and Paradise Lost of goth metal. I don't think they in the same category.
I've got an opinion about goth metal. I don't think it's a real genre.
Hot take.
A hot take, I know, but like I feel like doom is what they are in the musicianship. Goth is just an aesthetic. You could have a thrash metal or a death metal band that dresses goth or acts goth, but they're not
But
exactly a goth band.
but there is specific goth culture that you're ignoring. Goth is not just an extent and like a way of dressing and way of looking. It's also a way of being in a way
It
because
is,
and that's why I think it is a genre.
but I feel like these bands are quintessentially doom metal bands with the goth tag as well. I think they're a mixture
Okay.
of both, but I'd still say like the ingredients are still doom metal. But I'd say as a whole, I do like doom metal, and I think it's probably one of the genres I come back to quite a lot because the bands that are really good are really good. There is a lot of, like you said, I think bands that do take the piss of being a doom metal band. It's like I don't know why people want to listen to one riff every 3 minutes. Not to name
Yeah.
any bands, but like it's not for me.
There was a band I checked out recently, and it was like doom metal, and I can't remember for the life of me the name. Honest, it was someone recommended me to them, and like actually sent me like 4 tracks, and I was like, I felt bad not listening to these 4 tracks. Right? I was like, I really like this dude. I don't want to go back, and when he's asking me about it, being like, "What did you think to this?" and then be like, I didn't get that far. Right? So
So
I was
let's
like,
hope he doesn't watch the podcast and figure it out
yeah,
then.
I'll listen. I was like, I'll listen to all 4, and that was the hardest thing. One of the top 10 hardest things I've ever had to do as a music listener. I think I think it's the same argument we've had for industrial.
I don't think it is.
I would put them in D.
I would put them in B.
B.
B because yes, some bands are very repetitive, but like, I could name you about 20 bands that are great in Doom. I couldn't name you five in Industrial. Like, there's a lot more experimentation and a lot more that can be done with Doom. So it pushes it more towards what we said about black metal, even though there is some things that we said that are a bit like industrial repetitiveness. And I think, if you sent me an album that's like 4 Doom songs and they're all like 30 minutes long, I'm not gonna listen to it. Like you said, it's just fucking taking the piss. I do not like it. But the bands, there is a lot of bands in doom metal, and you've got the Death Doom, You've got like the gothic style of doom. You've got stuff with clean singing. I feel like there's a lot of variety in there that isn't the same as some other genres. And it's got different ways of listening. Some of it's quite heavy, while some of it's quite relaxing to listen to. So I think the variety aspect would push it to a B. And when I think about what I like in a genre, I love doom metal a lot more than I love thrash metal. So for different reasons, I think it pushed it to a B, even though it's not the same.
Okay. I don't know. I don't know if I can agree with it because I see Doom as kind of like a garnish to metal.
But I feel like people garnish other stuff with doom.
Yeah, yeah, no, but I feel like, all right, death metal, garnish it with a bit of Doom, banging. Black metal, garnish it with a bit of Doom, banging. Doom, I don't think there's enough solid bands to be able to say B.
I'd say we
But
meet. I'd say we meet in the
I
middle and do see them.
I would agree with C. Here's the thing, right? The reason why I'm not comfortable putting it would be same reason why I wasn't comfortable with putting folk metal on the same level as of thrash, right? Can you honestly tell me, without a doubt, there's as many influential bands in the doom metal genre as there is with thrash?
Not as much as thrash. Probably not now.
And that's why I can't. That's why I'm not comfortable putting it on the same level.
Okay, I think let's meet in the middle then. Let's do that in C.
Yeah, I'm going C. I reckon C's solid for doom.
Okay, right. So next we've got Gent.
F
Nathan.
F F F F. I think hit all right. Another negative Nathan moment. Um, Gent, same argument we had for other stuff. Boring, right? It's literally just for nerds to be like, yeah, but you don't understand it. It's right. Gent is the equivalent, right? Gent fans and progress. You know what? I'll even push the bar even further. Progressive fans in general and Gent fans are the same fuckers that watch Rick and Morty. And when you ever criticize the show in any way, they just go, "You're not just not smart enough to understand it. You're just not smart enough. You
You
see,
all right?
you're just not smart enough." And you're there like, "Shut up, right? Just shut up. You're not intelligent. You're not intelligent. If you have to base your entire personality on being intelligent, you're a dumb cunt." Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, Gent is not a strong genre at all. Meshuggah is the only band I will comfortably say is the only Gent band I am okay with seeing.
Yeah, I feel like it's another grindcore situation where I don't think it's a very good genre, but we've picked like two good bands that do not represent that genre very well in a way because they're just too good for that tag. Because they both like invented a genre in a way, and then everybody else came into it and ruined it.
I
So
find a lot of Gent is just and it's like, yeah, but listen to the polyrhythms the drummer's playing.
yeah,
I don't give a fuck.
there's not much redeemable qualities about Gent for me because I think Gent is good as a garnish, but only good as a garnish. Like, with metalcore bands use it, or death metal bands or deathcore bands use it. Like, I think it's good, but it needs to be in small doses. Like, too much of a good thing is not a good thing, and it can sound really cool, but then there's bands that just overuse it. Like, to be fair, there's bands like Periphery, which are great, but they're not a gent band. They joke about being a gent band, but they're not a gent band. They've got so much more
No,
to them.
they're their own thing.
Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know, there's not many jump bands I could name you that I think like really stood out to me. And I feel like they're just trying too hard to like try and impress, but it don't come across very good. They forget about the musicianship, the songwriting. So it's not a strong genre at all to me.
Yeah, and it's like it's right. It is just like purely for someone to jerk off their own ego of like, well, actually, if you lay out the all the rhythms, it spells out balls or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
like in the Greek alphabet, if you translate the rhythm into the Greek alphabet, it spells like balls and cock in Greek. how intelligent is that? It's like, no, it's not actually that impressive. It's actually just kind of dumb.
Yeah, it seems like an afterthought sometimes with these things.
Because like that's not a song. Do you know what I mean? That's not a song. That's not an album. That's not music, right?
Yeah, it feels like you listen to like one big solo or one big like guitar playthrough, but it doesn't feel like you listen to an actual song.
It's
It
music.
sounds like sound checking, is what it sounds like.
It fucking does.
It
It
sounds like
fucking
sound
does.
checking.
It sounds like you were expecting when they recorded that, right? That the sound guy at the other end going, right, you ready to record now? Oh, that was the song. Interesting. And then the band were like, you're just not smart to understand it.
And you know what, as well, I feel like if people say that band's gent, that's fine. If a band calls themselves gent, I know they're not going to be good.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that if they get given that moniker, because I don't think Meshuggah is and isn't.
Then yeah, they invented the genre, but much like Napalm Death, there's a lot more to these bands than just being gent or like grindcore. Like yeah, sure, they did like what basically became the fundamentals of the genre, but like Meshuggah's more than that.
Yeah, like if I see a band just like pop up on Instagram and I click on it, it says gent. I'm like, fuck
Block.
you. Yeah, I'm like, fuck you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's I mean, I suppose it is a hit with gent bands, but I just find it like I think you're kind of a douche.
Yeah,
like,
you know,
like,
play another genre and you might get laid.
oh, hot take, Brad. No, but it's purely music made by people who think they're smarter than they are, for people who think they're smarter than they are, so they can wank each other off.
Very true. Anyway, I feel there's not much more to say about gent, but I think it's very firmly an F. So next we've got Prog. I'll start us off. So here we've got Tool, which is a band that me and Nathan both like. Obviously, if you've listened to the podcast before, you know Nathan's not a massive fan of Prog, but I want to spill my bits first. I think Prog, and I'm going to cut the fan base out of this because it's pretty much what we said about Gent. It can be a bit toxic, but I think some of the bands that are in progressive metal are some of the most talented, especially the ones that actually can make, use that talent, that incredible musicianship, and somehow turn it into a songwriting structure. Periphery, Tool, Mastodon, fucking Opeth. Like, some of these bands are some of my favorite bands of all time. And I feel like when you listen to these bands, it's almost like listening to 10 bands in one sometimes if they do it right. You could listen to an album that's really somber, really mellow, while you listen to another and it's really heavy. It's got some of the best pieces of metal, like from all the genres. It's almost like having the Thanos Infinity Glove, and you've got all the stones. There's like a little bit of sauce from each, and it really works. I would say progressive metal deserves an S tier because it's produced some outstanding bands, and there's still good bands coming out. You might have to find them, and there is a lot of like wankery going on. But I'm not thinking about the fan base. I'm speaking about the bands themselves, and in that way, I think it's produced some of the strongest and most influential bands.
Not S tier. I
Go
would
on.
say.
If you can give me a solid argument why it shouldn't be an S tier, I will allow it.
We didn't
A
put
good argument, not because
again.
you don't like it.
No, not because I don't like it. I agree with your sentiment. I don't think it's an S tier.
Then you got to give me a good reason why.
Here's the good reason why. Because we haven't put Thrash, which is more important and has produced more and provided more for the scene in S tier because we didn't think it was strong enough to do that. I don't think we can comfortably go progressive metal is above Thrash. Why? Because there's some interesting things in there. Right? I feel like
Because the bands are better. That's simple. Simple put.
no, but like
The bands are better.
right. Here's the thing, though. We progressive metal is only good if they don't forget to make a song.
But
Writing. You know what I mean? Like,
there is a lot of bands that do make songs though.
Okay. Can we consolidate and say A? I would comfortably say A. I don't think it's S.
I'm not backing down from S on this one.
No, I don't think it's. That's the thing though. I'm not backing down from it's not strong enough to be in S, because I don't think I don't think it's on the same level as death metal and black metal. I don't think it's had that much reach, and I don't think it's that strong compared. I would agree with A.
See, I think that much like death metal and black metal, I feel like there's always been good bands in progressive metal. And unlike thrash, deathcore and new metal, there's never been a point where it's gone stale because there's always new bands coming out. And the whole point of the genre in a way is to be different and to be unlike the other bands. And in that way, you don't get a lot of copycats because I feel like the bands, like, look at Between the Buried and Me, look at Mastodon, look at Earpeth, like these bands are almost so unique that it's almost impossible to copy them. Otherwise, you just would be a cover band. So
I
like
I know, but I don't think it's strong enough for A
I
because I
think
don't
it's I
think it's
think it's
done.
stronger.
I don't think no, I don't think it. I don't think it's strong enough for C. For S, I mean, not A. I feel like it's strong enough for A.
But if you think about it there, like all the good points that we've gave to each of the ones that are quite high on the list, progressive metal has. Death metal, black metal, still around, still producing good bands. You've got that influence with thrash. You've got that some of these bands are still influencing bands to come now. Like loads of bands want to be Earpeth and Mastodon. Like I've seen so many bands that use their style. Some of them do it right as well if they use it right. You know, popularity. Some of these bands are still selling out arenas. Look at Tool, for example, one of the biggest metal bands of all time. Um, Good musicianship, great songwriting, not too many copycats as opposed to other genres. To me, despite what our opinions are, it's still there's not much we can fault it on, except for what personal preferences we have.
Okay, because I'm not well versed in power in progressive metal, and you listen to it more, I'll concede and say S. However, that's ignoring the fan base.
Oh, of course.
If we was factoring in the fan base, where we did
Oh,
with Gent,
it'd be going all the way
yeah,
down
yeah,
here.
be below F, below it'd be Z, Z.
Yeah, I
Um,
do not like progressive fan bases.
but for the sake, because I feel like we both walk back down and we just constantly argue, I will concede and say S because I am not as well versed in progressive as you are and don't know much about it. However, I still believe it should be A,
Yeah,
but
I think
I'll
that's a
concede and
fair
say
one.
S.
Right. So this is a genre that we're definitely both well versed in. And it's actually the last one on the list. Nathan, hit us with metalcore. One of the
Right,
biggest, if not the biggest,
well, it
metal genre
is,
right now. Yeah.
it is, it is. However, I don't know if it's S or A. I'd probably say B because there's a lot of copycats, and we've marked down a lot of bands for copycats. And I also feel like a lot of the bands that are in metalcore aren't actually metalcore. I think it's used too much as a crutch of, oh, we don't know what this band is. Metalcore. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's a solid genre in the sense of like, I can listen, I can listen to every band and be like, yeah, that's a distinctive sound for that genre, because it's just used as a crutch of, I don't know what this is.
So it's
Metalcore.
metalcore.
Do you know what I mean? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? That's why I don't think it's an S tier or an A tier. I think that's why it's a B tier because it's used as the dumping ground.
That aside, there, it is a genre, and some of these bands are shoehorned into it. So we do have to look at it as, okay, this is what people have said the genre is. So I guess we have to look at it that way. And you've got to think about how strong some of these bands are in this genre. Killswitch, Bring Me the Horizon, Trivium. Even though, again, I agree, I don't think some of these are even metalcore anymore. In Flames, like, there's so many good bands. Architects, fucking Bad Omens, Sleep Token. Like, we're talking about some of our favorite bands as well. There to remember. Like, I think this is a very strong genre. And to be fair, I do listen to a lot of
But
metalcore still.
it's the same argument for new metal though. For every one band, and it's even more than new metal band, right? I am willing to put money on this, right? For every one great band in metalcore, There is 250 exactly shit, terrible rip-offs.
I agree. Definitely on a scale, there is no more bigger rip-offs than in the metalcore space. That is for
That's the
sure.
thing. That's the
But
thing. And the thing is, I might be marking it low as bit for B, right? I might be marking it low as B, but I think because of the sheer fact it is just used as a dumping ground, then I don't think I think it's a genre that stands on its own, but it's not being defined of what the fuck it is. It's
but I
just like,
th
oh, well, modern metalcore is just kind of anything that's like a bit more up tempo, a few more proggy sections in there. But then you say classic metalcore, there's no difference really between classic metalcore and then that brief moment of modern metal we got in the early 2000s. Is the metalcore is that metalcore technically metal now? Because it's not technically in the genre of metalcore anymore. Is a band kind of going genty, but then also staying like, like with like a poppy sort of sound metalcore? I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just it's all a bit of a mess.
but however, if we're gonna take it for what it is, because this is what these are the cards that metalcore's been given, and we have to judge it as that genre with these bands with that tag. It is strong, and I feel like we talked about new metal and its influence. Bands are still influenced by new metal, sure, but like I feel like since metalcore's come out, it's never stopped being one of the most influential genres, if not the most influential, because new metal had its time of being the most influential, but metalcore still is. And the bands that are in metalcore are always the biggest. Like, they're the ones selling out the most. They're driving its popularity to skyrocketed level. And they produce some fucking amazing bands, even though there is copycats. I do agree. I don't think it should be S tier. I think that's too strong, given it has its faults. But I think it deserves to be an A because I feel like it's almost the same as deathcore, but just maybe not on the same length as copycats.
Can I rebuttal one of your points?
Go on.
I'm going to rebuttal your point of like they are the biggest. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? You're not talking about the weird colorate. How do you pronounce the word? Like the fucking coloration.
I need to know what you're going to say next, to be fair, to be able to let
Right,
you know.
okay. But you're not talking about the weird, like, sort of trend. I'll just use trend of starts off metalcore, gets a bit more popular, butt rock. Do you know what I mean?
True.
Admit it. Admit it. There is a fucking large amount of those bands, right, that enter the metalcore genre and then dip and sell out and do like a butt rock album. And is that benefiting the metalcore genre? Is it fuck? Because 9 out of 10 times, most of the fans that are in that crowd are going, I really liked the new album. I listened to it on Radio 1 and I thought it was really good. And then they play the old stuff like, what is this? But then they keep going with the butt rock, and all the old fans are like, I've been here since 2001. Not there anymore. So
Yeah,
it's not helping the genre, is what I'm saying. And there's a large amount of bands that have done that.
yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. But I think like whenever there's a band that does that, because there is a lot, and I can name a few, but I'm not gonna. There's always another band that'll come up to take the place of like that's the great metalcore band now.
But
So
that's
when
the
one
thing.
when
It's
one
a
goes butt
resolving
rock,
door.
another one will come through.
But it's a revolving door, and I don't think it's fair enough to judge it because well, all these other bands, even fucking Gent, they've all stayed in the lane. Metalcore, they just kind of as soon as they get a bit more popular, they go butt rock. Get the leather jackets out. Get those baggy jeans out. Let's make a fucking song where we're singing on a rooftop, right? Fuck it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then it's like another one takes the place. They get a little bit more popular. Butt rock. Get those leather jeans out. Get those baggy pants out. We'll make one where we're doing it in a basement this time.
I'll go for B, but I'm not budging any lower than that.
Okay, I will agree with B. That's why I think it's a B because I don't think it's strong enough. Because I feel like a lot of the people that get big, fucking get the fuck out of that genre.
Yeah, I feel like in my biased opinion, I think it's an S tier for me. But I feel like if I'm judging it as an outside perspective, then it is probably a B.
I made a great argument.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think, well, yeah, that's our tier list. Let us know what you think. I'm sure we'll definitely get some disagreements. But again, this is just our opinion. Like you're welcome to do your own tier list. But we've been listening to metal for quite a number of years, and I think we've managed to form. I think we made some good points for each genre. I don't think we've just shat on any.
I have definitely just shat on a lot.
We've
In
shat on
fact, the
some, but
majority of that list I've shat on.
I think we've made some good for and against arguments for most of them.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I've come off very negative in the episode. I feel really bad. I already take back a lot of the things I said because I did feel like I was a bit too negative.
All the gent fans are crying now.
Fuck the Gent fans. They're not my type of people.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I think I had fun with
Maybe
this. I think we'll
although
do a tier list again for sure.
retrospect, me saying if you base your personality off being pretending to be intelligent or wanting to be intelligent or being intelligent, you're a dumb cunt. Might have been a step too far. Might have been,
Also a bit right there.
okay. I'll adjust that statement. The statement is if you base your personality off being intelligent, you grate on me as a person.
Yeah. There we go. Positive wordplay, If you switch it around, it sounds better. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Dark Speak for Dave. I think we'll do one of these again. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah. Again, if you like the podcast, don't forget to like, subscribe. We're on all social media. It's Headbangers Podcast, except for Twitter, which is Headbangers Pod 1. If you listen on a streaming service, leave us a rating. Just help us out in the algorithm. Please don't unsubscribe for our opinions, but it's just our opinions, remember.
It's going to be a polarizing episode. I'm looking back on it now.
Yeah, I'm excited to see people's thoughts there. I'm excited to see people's thoughts.
Yeah, but that was the episode, guys. Again, we might disable comments on this video actually, so don't tell us your opinion in the comments.
Nah, you can.
And
You
if
can
you're
let
an
us know your
audio
opinion.
listener, and if you're an audio listener, I've got to say you probably blind all the way through that.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a visual thing, but we talk about it, so But yeah, hope you really enjoyed it. We'll catch you next episode. We've got some fun things coming, so stay tuned.